electric, and we were all moving an extended line, and still nothing happened, and we were just waiting. And after a while, you know, you could almost feel a sense of relief. People were beginning to think, well, they've bugged out, they're not here anymore. And just as we were beginning to feel that, there was suddenly, literally, the horizon just lit up in a complete sort of sea of white flashes. That initial firefight was quite incredible. It was like being at the wrong end of a machine gun range. And the noise was incredible. And I think we were fairly stunned for a minute or two. And you really had the feeling that if you raised your hand, you know, slightly in the air, it would be shot off.
The formidable Tumbledown Mountain was held by Argentina's 5th Marine Battalion, well-trained professional soldiers. The task of taking it fell to the Scots Guards. As dusk fell, 600 guardsmen prepared for battle. There is no visual record. The unfolding drama is relived through some of the men who fought there. Tumbledown would become a battle that the Scots Guards came close to losing.
Coming ahead!
Spearheading the attack were 30 men from 13 Platoon. They were in the thick of the fighting all night. Early in the advance, their platoon sergeant, the most experienced man, was shot dead. The Argentines soon had 13 Platoon pinned down. In over 4 hours, the platoon had made little ground. Company Commander John Kisley knew time was running out.
Clearly this was serious business. The commanding officer was telling me as much on the radio that the whole success of the night's operations depended on my company getting to the top in darkness.
And I started to get concerned because my worry was what was going to happen come dawn if we hadn't taken Tumbledown, if the Argentinians still had a presence on Tumbledown. And starting to go through my mind was, what was I going to do about it?
He was saying, you're the guy on the ground, you're the guy nearest to the problem, you solve it in your own way, but as quickly as possible.
With covering fire coming from Lance Sergeant McGuinness and 13 Platoon, John Kisley and 40 men began a do-or-die assault on the rocks towards the summit.
We started charging up the slopes of Mount Tumbledown, moving forward in small groups, firing as we went. The enemy were fighting in a very determined fashion. And certainly on one occasion I ran out of ammunition and had to use my bayonet.
Probably at this stage he'd taken probably 50–60% casualties, and probably another 10–20% actually thought they were casualties and just lay there.
And by the time we reached the last crest, there were only, I think, 7 of us. We looked down a distance in front of us and we could see the lights of Port Stanley, which was a huge surprise because I had imagined Stanley would be blacked out. And we stood there stock still in amazement, which was a very stupid thing to do because right then a machine gun opened up about 200 yards ahead of us and 3 of the group were hit.
By dawn, the 12-hour battle to take Mount Tumbledown was over. 9 guardsmen were dead and 43 wounded.
It was a pretty chaotic scene. There were a number of wounded people being tended to. There were stretcher parties lifting people back down the hill.
The guards waited for a counterattack from General Menendez in Stanley. As at Mount Longdon, no counterattack ever came.
You'd think you'd look like people who'd won Wimbledon or something. We didn't. We were shattered. We were very, very glad to be alive. We had lost some of our mates. I was very worried about some of the people who'd been wounded, whether they were going to survive.
People had lost legs, people had lost arms. And not one of them cried, not one of them screamed. Every one of them, in good guardsman fashion, just sat there. Not a word from any of them. Some of them were actually rolling their own cigarettes, just a stump, and sitting rolling their own cigarettes. And whether it was shock or not, I don't know. But looking back, it was extremely difficult, but they made you so, so proud.
We went through and it was 10, 15 feet, also no bloody hell let loose.
When you say all hell let loose, what does that mean?
Well, literally, from dead quiet, all of a sudden you got rounds going past you, mortars, artillery, grenades, whatever else has been thrown at us, hitting the rocks, and you see, in some cases, you're seeing bits of rock, glowing rock flying everywhere.
The boulders, I mean, can you describe the terrain, what it was like?
They're jagged granite boulders, and that causes a number of issues. You can break your legs, you can fall off the bloody things and die just trying to cut across it. It means that artillery rounds and mortar rounds can do a couple of things. They can land in the peat and bury themselves, or they can hit a rock and cause massive disaster. The Argentinian positions were well built, well concealed. The nature of the land there, as you know, means that these granite cliffs and crags will drive you into funnels of land. You know, when you go towards a set of craggy rocks, there are, if you can find them at night, places where you can get through and places where you can't get through. If you are a defending force, you put your machine guns covering the places where you can get through and where you're going to be, where the enemy, or in our case us, are going to be funneled into what you call a killing zone. And that's what we entered, killing zones.
Gary and Alan, you're still out at the diversionary attack and you're trying to withdraw.
Yeah.
Now, and obviously you're trying to bring your casualties out with you because you've got a number of casualties.
Yeah.
And you hit a minefield.
Yeah.
Can you explain what happened in those stages when you were trying to withdraw?
Well, on the withdrawal, we moved back for about 10 minutes or so, and then the Argentines started following up. They went back into their own position and started following us up. So we were taking fire from behind us, and then shortly after that we started taking mortar rounds. We thought things were bad, and then probably a minute or so later, one of the lads stepped on an anti-personnel mine. So we ended up in the middle of the minefield, being mortared and being shot at.
I mean, but you're in this minefield with mortar coming down, incoming fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything that's getting thrown at you from them, you're getting. You can't get away from it. There's no protection. No, this is coming down, and you take casualties, and there's nothing you can do.
And as far as we could tell, now I can't answer this, but as far as we could tell, the positions that we were coming forward to engage were the very positions that had managed to hold off, you know, a Scots Guards rifle company in the form of left flank. So they were obviously a good position.
Well, this isn't just the odd shot ringing out.
No.
So what's it like? Robert, tell me what it is like. You're assaulting one of the machine gun positions. What's it like?
It is loud. Everything is, you know, there are empty cases flying out of these weapons. There are bullets coming out the front of them. There are bits flying off where the bullets hit. And that's just one weapon.
You now times this by however many the enemy's got and however many we've got. You then bring in artillery shells coming in from ships, which are huge. You bring in artillery shells coming in from the Argentinians, 155s. You bring in British artillery shells. Then you bring in mortar shells. Now you add grenades to it. Let's add some anti-tank rockets in the form of 84s. This is just gutter fighting. This is not Queensberry rules. This is gutter fighting.
The battle made an eerie sight. The British progress marked only by the lines of tracer. Again, the resistance was tougher, the battle longer than expected. At dawn on Monday, the Scots Guards were still trying to fight their way to the top of Mount Tumbledown. The helicopters, snuggling against the contours of the land, couldn't keep the ammunition coming fast enough. The final bombardment brought the guns down to their last half-dozen shells. There was a naval bombardment too, but the task force had suffered such heavy damage that the ships couldn't provide the gunfire support that had been planned. The British were worried they might have to fight through the streets. Had the Argentines known that the British were on their last legs logistically, with the Navy almost unable to guarantee the supply line any longer, perhaps they would have fought on.